Hi, I'm Luke McIntosh, creator of BecomeABassist.com, and in this bonus lesson of Bass Chord Pro, you're going to be learning two very different right-hand techniques to play all these chords that you now know. Now, since I made the Bass Chord Pro lessons, I've had a bunch of people ask me how I use my right hand to get the sound out of the bass. It's probably the most commonly asked question since I made the lessons. People ask, is it a strum? Are you using a pick? Are you using fingers? How are you doing it? And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this lesson. So let's jump right in. I want to show you how I use my right hand to play all these chords. Now I'm not sure if there's a correct term for it, but I call it a multi-finger pluck. So I'm using multiple fingers on my right hand. Most of the time I'm using my thumb, my first finger, my index finger, and my middle finger. It's almost like a classical guitar player would play, or you could even think about a banjo player with picks on their fingers, almost like that a little bit. Now, for example, if I'm playing a three-note chord, for example, let's say a C major 7 chord, so I'm playing a C on the E string, a B on the D string, and an E on the G string. I'll use my thumb to play the E string, play the C. I'll use my index finger to play the B, the D string, and I'll use my my third finger here, my middle finger, to play the E. Just like that. Now, in general, my thumb is playing mostly on the E and the A string, and my index finger in general takes care of the D string, and my middle finger in general takes care of the G string. That's just general. Of course, there's going to be tons of exceptions. For example, if we just played a straight C major chord, so we've got the C, the G, and the E there, so we've got E string, A string, and G string up there, I might change that to play index finger on the A string and then middle finger on the G string. So that's just one kind of exception to the rule. And even sometimes when I play them, I'll actually use my ring finger on my right hand to play the G string right there. Just like that. The rules aren't really rules, they're more like guidelines. They're very, very flexible. Now, I really like this right-hand method of playing the notes because you can get like a really big fat sound by playing all the notes at once. Sounds really good. Or you can arpeggiate through them using your different fingers, just like that. And this is where you can get really creative and really melodic, especially if you start stringing chords together and even simple things like just running through different chords. Get some really nice melodies and some really kind of pretty sounds out of your bass. Also, if you ever want to play 4-note chords, like for example this E minor 9 that we talked about earlier, all you have to do is just add this extra finger in. So in this case, you've got thumb, you got the thumb playing the E, the index finger playing the B, middle finger playing the F sharp, and ring finger on the right hand playing the G. Sounds real pretty. Using this multi-finger pluck, most of the time you won't have to mute any strings because you're not actually playing on the strings that you don't want to sound. For example, if we take that C major 7 chord we're talking about before, there's no note on the A string, but you're not playing the A string, so it won't vibrate, which is awesome. However, sometimes you will get the kind of rogue vibrating string that you don't want, and here's how to fix that. Let's take the example of a B flat minor 7 chord. But let's say accidentally you start your A string is vibrating for whatever reason, you get that kind of sound. Not the most pleasant of sounds, right? But the easy way to fix it is to bring the middle finger right here, just bring it across a little bit and it stops that string from vibrating. So check it out. Just bring that bring that finger across and it stops that string from vibrating. Even if you play all the strings now, only the ones that you want to sound will sound. So the muting is all in the left hand in this case. Of course, you can do it with the right hand as well. You could easily go and just kind of stop it manually, but it's much easier if you do everything up here with your left hand. So even if you pick all the strings, only the ones that you want to sound will sound. Now, this method of muting is also perfect if you ever want to use a strum, which is the other way of kind of playing these notes. And strum is going to give you a much more aggressive, much more percussive sound. And there's no real kind of universally accepted way of strumming a bass, but I'll show you the way that works for me. Now, if you've ever strummed chords on a guitar, you know that there's downstrokes and there's upstrokes. And it's the same when it comes to playing bass. You can play down through the strings, or you can come up through the strings. Same thing. Oh, pardon me. Downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. Just like that. Now, on the downstroke, I'm just using, I think, the fingernails from my middle finger. But you could also use any three of these fingers really to get that kind of sound. You could use them all at the same time if you wanted to. It's all a preference. Like I said, there's no universally accepted way of strumming chords up on a bass. So find your own, find out what works for you. That's the beauty of what we do. We get to figure out what works and what doesn't. So right now I'm using just the middle fingernail. On the way up, I use my thumb fingernail. Just like that. So it's down with the middle finger, up with the thumb. Just like that. It's not that difficult. It can take a little bit of getting used to, but it's not that difficult to get your head around. Now, like I said, if you are using this technique, muting is going to be very important because you don't want notes that you don't want in the chord, if that makes sense. So if you're playing like this C major 7, and you get that A in the low end, then it kind of changes the sound of the chord, and it also gets a little bit muddy. So it's really important to do what we talked about before and use the left hand, use the other fingers of the left hand to kind of stop those notes from vibrating. So in this case, it's my index finger is playing the C there, but it's also grazing the A string across there, so it stops it from vibrating. This is super important, otherwise you get all kinds of different chords that you don't want. Some of them can sound really muddy, so make sure and get your muting under control if you are going to use this strum. Now, if you're playing a chord that doesn't actually use the low E string, another solution is to just try and avoid hitting that note. Hitting that string. So if you're playing, let's see, a type 2 G major 7 chord, G, B and F sharp, you can just kind of avoid hitting that E string. And that can get a little bit of getting used to as well. You kind of have to develop some accuracy so you don't come down on the E string. But once you do, that's a very good way of avoiding notes that you don't want to sound. So that all begs the question, which technique should you use? Should you use the multi-finger pluck? Should you use the strum? Which one's going to be best? And it all really depends on what the music wants. You should always be asking yourself, what does the music want? What is going to serve the music the best? Sometimes it'll be the multi-finger pluck, sometimes it'll be the more aggressive strum. You'll find that the top guys, they use both and they switch them out interchangeably. And you'll always find that they'll pick the one which serves the song the best at the time. So to review really quick, we talked about the two ways to get sound out of your bass using your right hand. We talked about the multi-finger pluck, and we also talked about the strum. We also briefly talked about serving the music and which technique you should use in different situations. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm Luke McIntosh, creator of BecomeABassist.com, and I'll see you very, very soon.